This is the Genasil delivery system, the first FDA-approved tankless nitric oxide delivery system. The following video is provided to help the user facilitate the safe and effective use of the Genasil delivery system.
Hi, I'm Omi Conklin, Senior Respiratory Specialist with Vero Biotech. I'm a respiratory therapist with 20 years of experience in respiratory and critical care. Today, I'll be showing you how to use the Genasil delivery system, taking you on a step-by-step demonstration of the setup and operational process.
To facilitate learning, a quick reference guide is available that provides step-by-step instructions on how to set up and operate the Genasil delivery system. Also available is a comprehensive operator's manual containing the same setup and operational steps with greater detail, an overview of the Genasil delivery system, a complete section on alarms, alerts, and troubleshooting, equipment compatibility, specifications, and an index to keywords. It is recommended both documents be read prior to operating the Genasil delivery system and be available for use later as a reference. The Genasil delivery system continuously introduces a controlled concentration of Genasil, nitric oxide gas, into the inspiratory limb of the ventilator circuit. The system generates nitric oxide at the point of use for inhalation and provides a consistent dose to the patient. Let's take an overview of the system. The Genasil delivery system consists of two consoles, which are identical in operation. A closer look is helpful to identify the components. Silver on-off power button, nitric oxide delivery port, adaptive sensor port, nitric oxide manual ventilation port, calibration port, water trap with gas sample port, interactive touchscreen user interface, cassette access door, cassette bay, cassette state window. On the back side of the console, you will find the black rocker power switch and the circular power connector. The cassette contains the material that will be converted to nitric oxide once it is activated. Confirm the cassette state window is blue. The plastic perforation below the cassette state window has not been punctured, and the expiration date has not passed. If the cassette state window is not blue, or the plastic perforation has been punctured, the material within the cassette has been inerted and cannot dose Genasil, nitric oxide gas. Now let's review the available components and accessories that make up the Genasil delivery circuit. The injection assembly is comprised of the NO gas injection adapter, an inline breathing circuit filter, and an adaptive sensor which is recommended for use with certain breathing devices. The gas lines consist of a red NO injection line that is used to deliver nitric oxide to the mechanical ventilation circuit. A blue sample line is used to sample gas from the inspiratory limb of the ventilator circuit, and a clear NO manual ventilation dosing line, which is used to deliver nitric oxide to the manual ventilation bag NO adapter. The neonatal gas sample tee is used to connect the sample line to the inspiratory limb of the ventilator circuit. The manual ventilation bag NO adapter is used to connect the oxygen tubing to deliver the Genasil nitric oxide gas during manual ventilation. It includes an NO injection port to connect to the manual ventilation line. Ensure the power cord is firmly seated in the power supply and connected on the back of each console. Ensure the black rocker power switch is pushed down towards the power connector. Press the silver power buttons on both consoles. The display screens will illuminate and the consoles will beep, indicating the power is on. This schematic is an example of a conventional ventilator circuit set up with the Genasil delivery system and a manual ventilation system. We will begin by establishing connections to the console and a standard ventilator circuit. Please refer to the operator's manual for other configurations. Push and twist clockwise the short Y end of the red NO injection line to the red NO delivery port on the front panel of the top console. Push and twist clockwise the short Y end of the blue sample line to the gas sample port on the front of the water trap, attached to the top console. Repeat connections for the red NO injection line and the blue sample line on the bottom console. Connect the adaptive sensor cable to the adaptive sensor port on the console that will be used to dose Genasil. Connect the adaptive sensor to the adaptive sensor cable by aligning the gold tabs and snapping the connector in place. Connect the adaptive sensor to the injection adapter. Connect the red NO injection line to the injection adapter. Connect the inline breathing circuit filter to the distal end of the injection adapter. Place the injection assembly on the dry side of the circuit prior to the heater humidifier. Push and twist clockwise the lure lock collar of the sample line onto the sample port of the gas sample tee. Place the gas sample tee in the inspiratory limb of the patient's circuit. Gas sample tee should be placed 6 to 12 inches from the patient's circuit Y. Ensure the blue stopcock valve is in the open position as shown. To set up the manual ventilation bag connection, push and twist clockwise the end of the manual ventilation line, clear, to the manual ventilation port, clear, on the front panel of the top and bottom console. Connect the manual ventilation line to the NO injection port of the manual ventilation bag NO adapter. Attach the barbed end of the manual ventilation bag NO adapter into the oxygen tubing from the manual ventilation bag. Connect the manual ventilation bag NO adapter to the oxygen source. Place the manual ventilation assembly in a clean, accessible place if needed for future use. You will need 2 cassettes for the dosing console and at least 1 for the backup console. Confirm the cassette state window on each cassette is blue and the plastic perforation below the cassette state window has not been punctured. Check the expiration date for each cassette to ensure it is not expired. Open the cassette access doors and insert 2 cassettes into the dosing console. And at least 1 cassette into the backup console by pushing the middle of each cassette until it clicks, indicating proper seating. The consoles will acknowledge that a cassette has been inserted. A sample line leak test will automatically appear on both consoles. Follow the on-screen prompts for completing the water trap sample line leak test. First, close the blue stopcock located on the end of the blue sample line. Once the test is complete, reopen the stopcock to the same position as pictured on the screen and press Accept. Entering the prescribed dose of nitric oxide is the next step. Press the Set button on the primary console, the one that has the adaptive sensor connected. You will notice that 20 ppm is pre-populated. You may use the numeric keypad to change the dose by simply typing over it, and press OK. The console will activate one of the 2 cassettes and begin dosing Genasil at the entered dose. If the Set button is not present on the screen, ensure there is flow through the patient's respiratory device and the adaptive sensor icon is green with an arrow. When there isn't an adaptive sensor connected, press the Set button. Select the total flow range on the user interface that matches the flow of the patient's gas delivery system bias flow and minute ventilation. Enter the prescribed dose of nitric oxide and press OK. In the event the patient requires manual ventilation, the following steps will be performed. Press the button Switch to Manual on the dosing console. Follow the on-screen prompts, which asks you to ensure the clear NO manual ventilation line is attached to the manual ventilation port on the front panel. Then press Confirm. Manual nitric oxide dosing will default to the set dose in primary mode. The dilution flow rate will default to 10 liters per minute. Ensure this matches the flow through your manual ventilation system. If an adjustment of the nitric oxide concentration is required, press the green up or down arrows. If an adjustment to the dilution flow rate is required, press the LPM value and a drop-down menu will expand. To return to primary mode once manual ventilation is complete, select Switch to Primary. Follow the on-screen prompts and then press Confirm. If the adaptive sensor is not connected, select Switch to Primary and select the total flow range on the user interface that correlates with the flow of the patient's gas delivery system. Press OK and then press Confirm. The NO dose that was used during manual ventilation will carry over to primary automatically. When a cassette approaches depletion, the console will automatically transition from the actively dosing cassette to the secondary cassette. This is shown by a moving arrow that indicates which cassette the console is transitioning to. Once the transition is complete, the console will alert you to which cassette needs to be replaced with a new one. The backup console should be used to maintain Genasil delivery in the unlikely event of abrupt discontinuation. Press the Set button on the backup console. Enter the dose, select appropriate total flow range, and press OK. The console will activate one of the two cassettes and begin dosing Genasil at the entered dose. If the adaptive sensor was connected, unplug the adaptive sensor cable and move it to the newly activated backup console, which is now your dosing console. When you are finished using the system, follow these steps for shutdown. Ensure the target dose is set to 0. If the Settings tab is not displayed, press the Menu tab to access the sub-level tabs. Press the Settings tab on the display menu. Press the red System Shutdown icon. Press Confirm to shut down. The consoles will eject the cassettes during the system shutdown. Wait until the console shuts down and the display screen appears blank prior to proceeding. Repeat steps for the other console. Open the cassette access door and remove the cassettes by pulling them straight out. Verify the color of each cassette state window. The ones that are no longer blue have been used and can be discarded per your hospital policy. The ones that are blue can still be used. Close the cassette access door. For information regarding connection of the Genasil delivery system with specific gas delivery systems, please refer to the Device Operation Manual or contact our 24/7 customer service number 877-337-4118.